In order to measure angles, there's three that you need to remember. And it's very important that you remember these types of angles because it resolves problems in the future. So the first angle that I want you to remember, or type of angle, is the acute angle. And an acute angle is an angle that is less than 90 degrees. So you have to remember that um, a 90-degree angle goes straight up and down. So the dotted line here is a 90-degree angle. This angle, as you can see, is less. Okay, so here's a 90-degree angle right there, and this angle is less than 90 degrees. So therefore, it is an acute angle. The next type of angle is the right angle, and it's an angle that measures exactly 90 degrees. If it is even 1 degree more or 1 degree less, it is no longer a right angle. Finally, there is the obtuse angle, and the obtuse angle is more than 90 degrees. And so if we put a dotted line here, okay, again, now that's rough, but that is basically our 90-degree angle. And as you can see, that the obtuse angle is more than 90 degrees. But if we were going to be a little bit more specific, the obtuse angle is more than 90 degrees, but less than 180 degrees. So keep that in mind. When measuring angles, it's very simple if you follow simple guidelines and don't make a silly mistake. So let's talk about the silly mistakes students make. So I'm going to call in my protractor, and here it is. And I'm going to move the protractor over so that we can look at it. So let's look at this protractor. The first thing is you notice that there's an extra portion at the bottom. This is in case you chip the protractor. What students do is they'll take the protractor and then they'll move the protractor and then they put it on the bottom of the angle, right? And then they end up with the wrong measurement. What you have to do is you have to keep in mind that extra part. And really, the part that you have to line up is the bottom line, which goes right through 0 and 180 degrees. So if I take this protractor and I put it right on the line, as you can see, the line goes right through 0. This protractor is almost lined up correctly. The next thing we have to remember is that the origin of the angle, which you can see right there, has to be on this point. So if we move the protractor over, right at the point, and now you can see, I'm going to move it over, I'm going to be even more precise. Okay, now you can see that the line goes right through 0, and the origin is lined up with the middle, direct middle of the protractor. And if I extend over here, I can see that the measure of this angle is 36 degrees. Now let's measure the obtuse angle, but what you'll notice right away is that unlike the obtuse angle I showed you before, the angle really starts here, whereas before, if you remember, the arrow extended this way. So that presents another mistake that people make when they're measuring angles. So once again, I'm going to call in my protractor, and there it is, and I'm going to keep in mind what I said the last time. So I'm going to line up the protractor so that the bottom line goes right through 0 and 180. Then I'm going to move it over so that the origin, okay, so that the origin is lined up and also that the line goes through 0 and 180. Now the protractor is lined up correctly. The other mistake that students make when they're measuring is that they take the wrong scale. If you look at the protractor, the inside starts with 0 and it goes all the way around to 180. That's if the arrow or the bottom of the angle is coming this way. But in this case, here's the line and you have to use the outside scale. You have to remember it's an obtuse angle. So if you look at this protractor, all of a sudden students look at it and they say, oh, well, it's 44 degrees. Well, that's the incorrect scale. That's if it's an acute angle. So you have to think, this is obtuse. It has to be more than 90 degrees. So if you say it's 45 degrees, it's incorrect. So if we look at the line here and we look at the correct scale, all of a sudden we realize that this angle is 136 degrees. Let's review the rules for measuring angles so that everybody is successful. And basically, students make mistakes because they don't follow these simple rules that guarantee success. The first one is that you line up the base of the protractor so that the line goes through 0 and 180 degrees. So again, here's the protractor. Remember, the bottom of the protractor is in case it's chipped. The real base of the protractor is the dark line at the bottom. And this line goes through 0 and 180 degrees on both scales. So the angle has to line up along the dark line, not the portion at the bottom. Secondly, what you want to do is to place the exact middle of the protractor over the origin of the angle. So if I call in my protractor again, here it is, and I'll point to it for you. So I'm just going to move it over. Here we go. So that you place the exact middle of the protractor over the origin. So the origin of the angle has to go right where the red dot is, always, or else you'll end up with the wrong number. Finally, use the correct scale. It's very simple, but unfortunately, students make mistakes. So again, I'll import the protractor. There it is. And I'm going to move it over. And you can see that if the angle starts here, right, that you have to use this scale. And if the angle starts here, well, then you use the inside scale. There's no excuse for using the wrong number. You can also think that if it's an obtuse angle, and the angle comes out over here, that it cannot be 40 degrees because it's an obtuse angle. It has to be 140 degrees. Keep these rules in mind and you'll always get the correct answer. Well, if you thought I was finished, there's one more angle, and this one is for grade 6s only. This is called a reflex angle. Now, a reflex angle, it goes all the way around. You have to keep in mind that to go all the way around, you go 360 degrees. So this angle is more than 180 degrees, but it's less than 360 degrees. So these are rather large angles. To measure this angle, as you can see, I flipped it around, and when you're measuring it, you could turn your paper or you could do something different with your protractor. But I'm going to call in my my protractor again, because you obviously still need a protractor to do it even though it's a reflex. And I'm going to line up the protractor correctly. Okay, and as you can see, just like I've been really pushing, the baseline goes through 0. I lined up the origin of the angle, and then I extend it, and I can see that it is 148 degrees. So if the interior angle is 148 degrees, I can take 360 and I can subtract 148. And when I do that, I get my answer. There we go. So that means that this angle here, as it goes all the way around and it goes up here, that this angle, where the dotted line is equal to 212 degrees.